Hello and welcome to another playoff edition of the NBA Outlet presented by OTGBasketball.com. Make sure you follow OTG on Twitter at OTG Basketball. Also hit that subscribe button. I'm your host, Nick Fay. With me today, Harris Wishard, Mr. Hoops. What's up, Harris?
What's up, Nicky boy? It's it's good to be here with you today. And the Celtics and Cavs, obviously we know about the game 4 that happened, and the Cleveland Cavaliers in good position now to close them out after the win yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I think Cavs fans are probably a little nervous up into the second quarter of the game last night. You know, the Celtics looked like they got some confidence. They were in a groove. They were playing that team basketball. But then Kyrie Irving decided to turn into the Human Torch. 42 points, 15 to 22 from the field, 4-7 from three, just only 3 turnovers. And he really, like LeBron said, carried that team yesterday.
He did, man. And, you know, that third quarter where he had 21 was special. And now we're talking, you know, this conversation has come up the last couple of days. Are we talking about one of the best finishers under the rim that we've ever seen? We know about the explosiveness of LeBron and guys that are flying above the basket, but, you know, 6'2", 6'3", Kyrie has been, you know, Mr. Clutch for them over the last couple of years in the postseason. And he has his big breakout game and in much needed timing for them because they couldn't let this one get away.
Yeah, you know, it seems that Kyrie always steps up when they need him most. Last year in the finals, he was huge. So, you know, this is kind of what the Cavs need. They need him to get going into the next round. You know, that Warriors team is going to be deadly. But just the big three in general stepped up yesterday. 93 points from Kyrie, LeBron, and Love. Love only had 17 scoring, but he did put in 17 rebounds. So that big three is, you know, a big-time performance.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that sticks out to me about Kevin Love has been these outlet passes. I mean, for goodness sake. This is the best quarterback they have in Cleveland. and so he's been I want to say solid, but he's had some really good games. Obviously, like you mentioned, the 17 rebounds. But I think something I've always mentioned to you is that, and I know I joke about this, but when Love is featured in some of those post-game pictures, the camaraderie of the team and just it's just one of those things where you see when Love's fitting in and when it's natural and he looks more like the confidence level of a Minnesota Kevin Love, the flow of this team and the success of this team goes through the roof.
Yeah, no, you can definitely see it in the team in general. And I think winning a championship last year kind of relieved some of that pressure for him. You know, and then, like you said, he fits in. He's in the post-game pictures. You know, he's got the handshakes with everybody. Him and LeBron seem to get along a lot better now. Also, LeBron seems to get him the ball a lot in the first quarter early on, get him going, get his confidence high. And like you said, he's playing more like that Minnesota Kevin Love. Mm-hmm. But, you know, this is just some of the best basketball we've seen from him. And he's also, you know, like Kevin Love was great in Minnesota, but they weren't winning games. You know, they didn't make the postseason. But now he's in Cleveland, and he's having a big role in a team that's very effective. And I think this is probably some of the best basketball we've seen him play in general. Also, you mentioned the outlet passes. You know, there's not a person in the league that could really throw passes like he does. Some of the passes he throws, it has like a backspin on it, so it just kind of drops in. It's kind of ridiculous. And like you said, best quarterback in Cleveland, at least right now.
Yeah, no question about it. And, you know, for me, Love has always been – he's going to always be compared to Bosh. They got to have their, you know, contact information somewhere, Bosh and Love, about how to be this third man in this LeBron James scheme of the big three. But it's going to take more as they go forward after this series against the Celtics, you know, assuming that they finish either in game 5 or 6. We know how deadly the Warriors are and what it's going to take to beat them. It's going to be the J.R. Smiths, the Richard Jeffersons, the Shumperts, the Corvers that are going to have to play good basketball, Deron Williams. And it's not just going to be the big three, but like you mentioned, a monumental effort from Kyrie, and then LeBron and Love fill in. And this is a game where we featured LeBron James with 4 fouls in the first half. The fourth one he picked up on the offensive end, and it didn't affect his minutes, still played 38 minutes. But it's just amazing how he was able to not pick up a foul in the second half and still stay aggressive.
Yeah, and then, you know, still have an impact on the game in the paint and defensively with those 4 fouls. You know, that's definitely something tough to do. I mean, that one foul that they called on him against Marcus Smart was kind of trash, but, you know, the other 3 were definitely, you know, fair calls. But LeBron, it was, you know, obviously he had that rough game 3 where he had 11 points, 6 assists, 6 turnovers, and the Cavs obviously lost the game. They're up by 21 points. It came out today that LeBron said he was sick for Game 3 and Game 4. What are your thoughts on that?
Excuse me. Picked up the LeBron flu there for a second. Nah, I don't know. He probably was. I mean, that could be an explanation for it, but what does it really do for us at this point? I don't know. It's Game 4. He probably wasn't feeling great either, and he was able to have 34 and shoot 15 to 27. I know for his standards, Game 3 was very, very weird, and it was one of his worst playoff games in 2 or 3 years. And so if that's the reason, then so be it. Richard Jefferson said there was a bug going around the team. LeBron's talking about his energy. So if that's the case, then so be it. But I don't know if that really changed anything now.
Yeah, I mean, he has a bad game. Everybody has a bad game. He probably was sick. It kind of would make sense for he was kind of, very passive and didn't have a lot of touches, kind of get Kevin Love and Kyrie do the stuff. So, but last night, I don't think he looked a lot better. I mean, energy-wise, he did have that dunk that he missed in the second or third quarter. But, I mean, he got out in the fast break, and Love hit him a few times with the outlet passes. So I think he should be fine. And like we mentioned, long as the Cavs are able to handle business in 5 or 6 games, they should have plenty of rest before the finals.
Yeah, I mean, Game 7 I can't even picture a Game 7, but it would still give, them a couple days. But I don't know. The rest part of it is going to be a non-factor. The Warriors have been resting up for a while now, but I think I'd rather be the team that played basketball 5 or 6 days ago and not 8 or 9, 10 days ago. So I don't know how that's going to work out. But like you said, they're going to have plenty of rest, and it's going to be a non-factor. But let's talk Celtics a little.
No disrespect to them. We obviously, they're the competitive team. They were the first seed this year, but without Isaiah Thomas down 3-1, we don't really expect them to come back and win the series. I don't think that's any disrespect to them. I think Celtics fans are really happy being in the Eastern Conference Finals, and they do have the number 1 pick in the draft. So the sky's the limit for this team going forward. Their future's bright. What did you see from them in Game 4 and Game 3 that kind of why were they a different team?
Well, I mean, they got the effort from LeBron that they needed really in order to win a game. That's what really needed to happen. But I mean, in Game 4, they came out and they were up by 10 at half also, and they got a strong half from Bradley, and Crowder been playing well, and Smart. A lot of people call Game 3 the Marcus Smart fluke game, and then he comes out in Game 4 and shoots 1 of 9, 1 of 5 from 3. So he came back down to earth a little bit because he was a major factor in Game 3.
Yeah, no, you made a great point with Marcus Smart. Obviously, he had that huge Game 3, hit a ton of threes. But Game 4, that 1 of 9 isn't really going to help the team. They did have a good team effort, like you mentioned. Bradley was stepping up. I think they had 3 or 4 guys with over 15 points. But I think the real issue was turnovers in the second half, and their confidence kind of got ruined. In the first half, they had 3 turnovers in Game 4. In the second half, they had 9. And really to start that third quarter, they had a lot of stupid turnovers, and it kind of ruined their confidence, allowed the Cavs to get on a run, get things cooking, the arena pumping, and next thing you know, Cavs are up and the game's out of hand.
Yeah, and it's, for me, Marcus Smart is a key player on this group, and for him to be 1 of 9, 1 of 5, it's going to be tough to win ball games. But what really did them in Game 4 was that 40-23 third quarter, and Kyrie going off for 21, and they just couldn't recover from that.
But yeah, with a team that's supposed to have a ton of perimeter defense, they weren't really able to do much to Kyrie Irving. But when he gets in that type of rhythm, it's not really much you can do as a defense.
15 of 22 for Uncle Drew.
Yeah, and I mean, he had a ton of nasty finishes, shots that most players wouldn't even attempt.
Yeah, he was definitely locked in for sure, Nick.
What do you think about Isaiah Thomas obviously being out? Is it more of a fluke that they got blown out really bad when he played Game 1 and Game 2, and then they were, closer in Game 3, Game 4? Is it a fluke that Isaiah wasn't playing in those games, or is it something defensively, or, they just play more team ball and more guys just realize they have to step up with him out?
Yeah, it's more that. I mean, for me, Isaiah Thomas is a great player. He had a great season. He's a tremendous offensive player, taking nothing away from him. But this team did look a little bit more together, and the chemistry and camaraderie was a little bit tighter knowing that they had, like you said, knowing that they had to step up, knowing that they had to bring more to the table. And that's that. This is not, I don't think this is more so the Ewing theory, something that Bill Simmons talks a lot about, the big Celtics fan in the book of basketball, about how the Knicks were better off without Patrick Ewing in the late 90s after his prime, like after the tail end of his prime. But this one's a little different. I don't know if I would think that this is not the Isaiah Thomas theory that the Celtics are a better team without him. It's just happened to go this way. I mean, in the long run, if they want an opportunity to win this series, they would need Isaiah on the team.
Yeah, I mean, I think it probably is a little bit of pros and cons. I think the team sometimes watches Isaiah, when he's, doing all the work, getting those tough shots and stuff, and that kind of prevents ball movement. And some of it, the ball does stick to his hand a little bit. And defensively, obviously, he's not a plus defender. But I think when you need a clutch basket or they're going on a big run and you don't have a go-to scorer on the team, it definitely hurts. And I think, they could have probably benefited of having Isaiah Thomas in that third quarter yesterday. But obviously they do have the advantage of playing somebody like Marcus Smart, who is a plus defender. He's going to put all those hustle plays. He's going to really bang around with guys. And Isaiah Thomas's spot as a defender is going to make a difference too.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. I mean, Isaiah, like we've said throughout the year, and because he was getting the comparisons to a John Wall, he's not the best defensive player that there is, and his size does impact him on that side of the floor. But there was no one on earth that was stopping Kyrie, even though the Celtics did have their better perimeter defensive players out there last night.
That's very true.
They needed him this last night in the second half, where their offense fell by the wayside and they couldn't score the 25 to 30 points that they were scoring in the first couple of quarters. But credit to Boston. I think they deserve that after the last couple gritty performances and not rolling over and dying like they could have and just gotten blown out like we expected. I was watching game 3 early on thinking this is going to be another rout. We've said it. We were texting each other. I think I said, this looks like a varsity against the 8th grade team, and it turned out to be the last couple games way more competitive than I think anybody thought would be.
Yeah, I mean, after game 2 and that 40-point blowout, many of us thought this game was almost a lock to be a sweep. So it's really impressive that the Celtics were able to bounce back, form everything together, come together as a team and really push the Cavs forward. And, they did win game 3, game 4. They still had a nice effort, but it wasn't enough. In game 5, I kind of expect the same thing where they're not going to get blown out, but they'll stay in the game at least up to the early fourth quarter. So with that said, what do you think? You think the Cavs take care of this in 5 games, 6 games? What do you think happens here?
Yeah, it's tough for me to think that the Cavaliers wouldn't finish in 5. Especially because I feel like for whatever reason they're playing real good basketball on the road right now. They're locked in, they're dialed in. A day to rest, a day to travel, and they'll head into Boston, I think, and take care of business.
Yeah, I think they kind of realized after game 3 that was a good wake-up call. LeBron even said it. Sometimes it's positive for your team to lose. It kind of makes you look in the mirror and be like, all right, we're not amazing, we're not untouchable, we need to play. So I think they'll take care of business game 5, pick up that extra rest for LeBron, and then we'll see our 3-time matchup in the finals, Cavs versus Warriors. Talking about Warriors, though, let's talk Warriors Spurs. Obviously, Warriors swept. It could have been a really nice series. Before Kawhi got injured in game 1, the Spurs were up 20+. A series of what could have been.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those could have, should have, would have with that injury. With Zaza, and then we saw LaMarcus Aldridge, I think, from a personal standpoint, try to not maybe retaliate, but maybe that extra foot that didn't need to be there, so to speak, on Durant in game 2. But when they're up 25 on the road in game 1, in the third quarter, so even in the third quarter, yeah, I mean, it's what it should have, could have, would have. It's the only way you could think about this right now. Kawhi is obviously their best player, MVP candidate, and for him to go out and then the Warriors to make that run, I think this is a series that could have gone 5 or 6 with Leonard there, the way that game 1 was going, Nick.
Yeah, no, definitely, and you mentioned it, Kawhi's been not only the Spurs' best player, but he's been one of the best players in the league this season. A lot of people named him the second best player in the league this postseason, the way he's been playing. So, I mean, his impact's definitely felt, especially when you have someone like Kevin Durant. After Kawhi went out, they had no answer for Durant at all. So that impact was felt. The one nice thing we probably got to see out of this all with Kawhi getting injured was Ginobili got to play more minutes, and he was able to have a nice playoff series, which might be his last one. Do you think he's done, or do you think he comes back?
I think he's done. I think based off what I saw from Pop and the way they treated him at the end of the game, I think that this would be the right time for Ginobili to hang it up. You don't usually see like ovations like that for guys, considering coming back, or I mean, not considering coming back, but for guys that are going to play another season, for that matter. I think kind of Pop and Ginobili understand that it might be his time. But would it shock me if he came back for another year? No. But at the same time, I think based off Ginobili's reaction and how things have gone in this series and just his general career, I would think that he is done. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he's done. I think the one thing that kind of pointed out for me was, I think someone asked Pop, why'd you start Ginobili in game 4? He said out of respect. So yeah. I think he might know that, this is probably his last game. And, he had a great career. A lot of people say Hall of Famer. I say Hall of Famer. He had a ton of big moments, and he just he always seemed to just make the right play and just do, at the right time too.
Yeah. And just like you said, first ballot, I think he just really just revolutionized basketball in a sense of the international player. A lot of things. I mean, obviously, a lot of people give Dirk credit, but I think when we have to talk about Manu, is they won the gold medal in Argentina in 2004, with that one year that the U.S. didn't win it, and that was when Coach K came in. They kind of redid all of USA basketball, but just can't say enough about Ginobili and what he's meant to his home country and what he's meant to the San Antonio Spurs organization. It's pretty incredible.
Like you said, spreading the NBA game around the world is always important, but also Ginobili changed the NBA game in a sense. You see a ton of guys use his moves. James Harden's game is, has a ton of Ginobili in it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, definitely great to see him.
The global impact of Ginobili and what he brought to America, the originator, like you said, the original OG of the Euro step, and just crafty, as Steph Curry called him, crafty, and just brought fundamental flash is, I think, a good way to put it.
Yeah, that's very true. And it's he was obviously a pretty good athlete in his prime, but, it's for someone who's not super explosive, where you have the LeBron James and these guys are going to overpower you. Ginobili, somebody to watch, where you can kind of do your thing and maybe outsmart somebody to get to the hoop and get those easy baskets.
Kind of like the Paul Pierce aspect of it, where even though I think he's a better athlete than Paul Pierce, he didn't necessarily always get it done off explosiveness and speed. Like you said, he had a lot of flair to his game and a lot of flash to his game that helped him get it done for so many years.
I want to touch on, you mentioned LaMarcus Aldridge, and these last 2 games for Aldridge were pretty bad. I know in game 4 he got called out a ton, and just in the paint, in the presence and the size that he has against a team like the Warriors that sometimes didn't even play Zaza or McGee, and his lack of ability to grab a rebound and put it back for an easy 2 really hurt the Spurs in the series. And going forward, what do you think is going to happen with Aldridge in San Antonio?
I think he'll be back, but like you said, it's troubling, some of the things that you saw from him in the postseason. I think he dominated parts of game 1, but then kind of went away after that. And him not being able to clear the defensive glass hurt them a lot in big situations. I feel like the Warriors got a lot of big offensive rebounds, and Marcus might be to blame for that. But he's also aging, and he's not the person that we know from Portland. I don't know. For me, I think Aldridge will be there next year, but I think the Spurs might be in their best interest to go away from him.
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough place for the Spurs because his value is probably at an all-time low right now. So it's really tough to trade somebody unless you're willing to not get the return that you're looking for. And maybe they are. Maybe they have someone they're going to go after in the offseason. They want to kind of dump Aldridge's contract or something along those lines. I don't know. But I think, they most likely keep him. And we'll see what happens. I think overall, though, the roster, they might, try to add some more talent and get a little bit younger, because that was an issue against the Warriors too. And, maybe, playing Gasol and Aldridge or Lee and Aldridge or Lee and Gasol or Dwayne Dedmon's really the only one that really is an athlete down there. And I think that kind of was exposed against the Warriors. Obviously, Kawhi not being there hurt them a ton, but the lack of foot speed against a team like the Warriors, who's just so fast, so quick, and will play a ton of small lineups.
Yeah, and he's got to be, 31, 32 at this point?
Yeah, and he did have, if I'm not mistaken, he might have had a knee issue at some point.
Yeah, he's 31, but he kind of plays a little older than that.
Yeah, and I mean his game, when you're a post player, and when he was in Portland, he was getting plenty of shots, plenty of touches in the post, shooting a lot of jump shots, and he was more of a volume scorer probably, I would say. And when you're in San Antonio and you're not getting as many touches and you're not really holding onto the ball and getting to shoot, like in Portland where he was posting guys up, backing them down, and then he was putting a shot up here. They're looking for more catch and shoot. You're getting open shots. And you need to take advantage of it. And I don't know if that fits his game perfectly. I think Pop obviously is a great coach, and he'll find a way to kind of incorporate him in a little better going forward, especially with, the possibility of Ginobili being gone, Parker being gone, and this team needing to get better.
Yeah, they have a lot. They have a busy offseason, but if there's anybody that's going to find value in a draft pick at the bottom of the first round or bottom of the second round, or undrafted players, or scout some guys that they need to scout.
D-League guys.
We know how the Spurs run their organization, so expect to see them back next year around this time. And with Leonard as their main cog, I think they're going to be in good shape.
Yeah, and like you said, they could have a big offseason. And a quick shout-out before we talk about the Warriors to Jonathan Simmons and DeJounte Murray. Both played big in the postseason, got some nice minutes, and really impressed. But let's talk Warriors.
Well, Simmons is going to get paid too.
Yeah, Simmons is going to get a big deal. He's a restricted free agent, but someone's going to offer him a deal. It'll be interesting to see because he's not quite as young as some of the guys you see in restricted free agency. I think he's at 27, 28. So it's not like he's going to add a ton more to his game. But he does, bring that element of athleticism, that energy, that defensive ability to a team. So I'm kind of curious to see what type of money gets thrown his way. But talking about the other team in the series, the Golden State Warriors, a team that hasn't lost this postseason, 12-0. I wanted to ask you, being a big Steph Curry fan, I know you watch the Warriors pretty closely. Do you think this is their best postseason run so far? Obviously, with excluding the finals, talking about the first 3 rounds.
Yeah, it's hard to say no. I mean, and I talk to you about this all the time. It's amazing that they've added Kevin Durant. I mean, sometimes you just forget, and sometimes I find myself shaking my head, even 70 some odd games into it, or how many ever it is. I just find myself, shaking my head and saying, man, they added what you could consider the second or third best player on the planet. It's tough to say their team's ever been better. So it's very possible that this is their best. I mean, they haven't lost, so that has obviously a lot to do with it, but it's just in the fashion that they're winning games in, and they're doing it necessarily without the great efforts from Klay Thompson, who was 3 of 13 in game 4. And I know you posted something about him kind of getting carried a little bit, but how many guys could have great games? I know he hasn't been great, but it's tough for everybody to click on all cylinders. He hasn't had the best postseason, but Durant and Curry have more than made up for that. And what you have said has been Curry's best postseason also.
Yeah, we'll touch on Klay in a little bit, but you mentioned it, this postseason run 12-0, and I think the fact that kind of gets ignored sometimes is Steve Kerr's out. This is a great coach here. He came in and got this team rolling. And, Mike Brown has done a hell of a job, 12-0. Most coaches, if he lost 2 games, we'd still be looking at this as a great postseason run. Obviously, the Warriors have caught a few breaks. The injuries, George Hill, Kawhi Leonard, Joseph Nurkic. But at the end of the day, it hasn't really changed what we thought would happen in the series. So I personally believe just the dominant fashion they have been going at is the reason that this is their best postseason run. And, I've talked to you about this. I think this is Steph Curry's best postseason. And looking at the numbers, points per game, best season, 30 points per game in the postseason, best field goal percentage in the postseason, 50.2%, best 3-point percentage, 43.1%, and a best, another interesting stat is his free throw attempts in the postseason are at an all-time high at 6.6. So I think that kind of talks a little bit about and kind of kills that narrative that Steph can only shoot. And I thought in game 4, he did a great job showing off his other skills, his ball handling, and his finishing ability around the hoop.
Early on, he was terrific getting to the basket. And I was watching him with my dad, and he's like, man, I haven't seen Curry get to the rim like this in a long time. And so he's kind of channeling his inner Kyrie Irving and getting to the basket at will in that game 4.
Yeah, and like that just makes him so difficult to defend because it's not like he was shooting bad from three. He wasn't shooting great to start the game, but you still have to respect his 3-point game because obviously, I mean, in my opinion, he's the greatest shooter ever. And you're looking at that, and then this guy can take the ball down, he can cross you up real quick and hit a tough layup over 2 guys in the paint. It's like, how do you defend him?
It's very tough right now, and especially when Durant is stretching the floor like he is right now, it's a nightmare. And the Spurs got it firsthand, and the Jazz got it, and the Blazers got it, and I'm sure the Cavaliers will get it. But it's
every time a Durant just like scores and he has like some crazy shot where he like pulls up on somebody like right in his grill, or he just decides to shoot a long 3, I just kind of laugh because it's just like ridiculous. This Warriors team was already great going to the season, and like you said, they had what probably, in my opinion, is the second best player in the NBA, and it's just like, how do you defend a monster like that?
And, a lot's been talked about with the competition in this postseason. You could have a bad movie be bad for an hour, but if the last half an hour is great, that's what you'll remember. I mean, this has been historically just a non-competitive playoff, and I think the NBA is desperate for a great final. But a lot of people are taking shots at Durant for the reason why this has been the way it is. And he says, you don't like it, don't watch it. That's one way, I guess, of going at it. Not the best marketing scheme, I don't think, but they do have a chance to have some epic finals games here and a lot of pressure on Durant.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Durant, but I think Durant feels really comfortable in this situation. He said earlier this week that he was going to re-sign with the Warriors this year, and that was before, obviously, they won the championship or have an attempt to win the championship. So I think that's big, and I think Green said something also, that Durant was one of the only superstars that could come in and fit in this Warriors team and not mess things up. And I think that's been right. And I think just the fit with Durant and him not wanting to be like that super alpha that has to take like 30 shots a game and he needs to take all the big shots, where he's in a better team environment where it's okay for him to pass the ball.
I also know this might sound weird, but I think him being out for 20 games kind of helped them too.
It did.
It helped them kind of get their rhythm that they kind of had, their cohesiveness that they had last year, but then figuring out, because I think it helped Curry get his groove back. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it helped Thompson as well, even though he hasn't been great in the postseason. It just kind of
helped them defensively too. They realized, we can't just outscore everyone. We have to play defense. And I think during that stretch, they really starting to tighten things up.
Right. But yeah, they were terrific when he was out, and they've been terrific with him back.
Yeah. And you mentioned Klay, our OTG Instagram, our guy posted a graphic today, is Klay getting carried? And this is his worst postseason statistically, low in points per game, 14.4, field goal percentage is down at 38%, 3-point percentage is down at 36%. And this is a guy who has shot over 40% from 3 every year in the playoffs. His field goal percentage never has been amazing, but it's been over 40%. So Klay's definitely struggling from the field. He still does bring some toughness in defense, but I think they'd like to see him get cooking for the finals.
No doubt. It's going to be important because, like we mentioned, the importance of the Cavaliers role guys, even though Klay is an all-star. And
it's kind of crazy. It's like he's a role guy, but he's an all-star. But, he could have a bad game and they can still win.
100%. But it's going to take obviously a lot from Cleveland's standpoint, and we'll get to that as it presents itself and once it's official and once we get into all the other shows. But does Klay Thompson need to play better for them to win a championship? Yes, but at the same time, if he is off, I don't know if I've ever seen a dynamic offensive team when one of their key guys could be off, and I don't know if it's going to hurt them that much, but I think more so on the defensive end that they're going to need him also because I don't know if they're going to put Steph on Kyrie, but I guess we'll get to all that stuff when the time comes. But Klay Thompson is an important part of this team, is the bottom line, and he's going to have to play a little bit better.
Well, I think the thing for Klay is that he just can't have terrible games. He had some really bad shooting games in the series against the Spurs, and they just need him to be okay. Like you said, they have Curry, they have Durant. Those guys can put up 30 a game. Green's going to put up some points. The bench is going to come in. They're going to get some easy hoops for Zaza and McGee. Long as Klay can just be pretty good or just even decent and, bring that defensive intensity, they'll be fine. But like you said, we'll touch on all that in the NBA Finals preview, which we'll be doing if they do wrap business up sometime this weekend. And during the finals, we're also going to have halftime shows and possibly post-game shows. So definitely keep an eye out for OTG stuff. As you know, you can follow us on Twitter, OTG Basketball. Also, hit that subscribe button. Harris, great show today. I'm pretty pumped for next week. So definitely looking forward to it. And as always, have a great weekend.